Hey everyone, back with another tutorial. So this will be a quick one. I have had people ask about kick and sub, so I'm going to show you how to shape your kick. This, I think, is a good way to fit your kick into your track. People always ask, how do you EQ a kick? How do you EQ the kick so it fits well with your track? And my answer to that is EQ is good in the latter stages once a track is complete. But when you're building out the track, I think it's important, more important to choose the right kick and to shape it. And I will show you what I mean by that. So I've got a track here that I've started. It's very bare. It doesn't really have anything, but I was building the sub bass and I was building the kick, and I basically just started doing this, and I wanted to show you what I did to find the right kick. So I'll play it with the kick and sub first, and you can see how it gels, and then I'll show you how I did that. So here we go. Okay, so that sequence, I just kind of turned it off because, well, it kind of was just disrupting the main sound, and I'm still working on it. So, yeah. So, let's look at the kick and sub now. Okay, so you can see they do gel well together. Now, how did I do that? The first thing I'm going to do is I want to actually show you what I had. So before, when I actually started this, if you haven't seen my other tutorial on kick and sub bass relationship, definitely watch that as well. And I talk about how you have to choose the right kick and don't be afraid to change the kick to suit the track. So actually, essentially what I originally had was, I'll just turn this off. I basically just had, I think it was this kick, and then I kind of just had this kick, and then I had the mid bass. I chose that kick at the start because I really liked it. Then I kind of just built the mid bass, and I hadn't really built the sub bass. So this is kind of what I had at the start. Compared to the kick I chose now. It might not sound that different, but let's solo those kicks. Both great kicks, both great thumps. In solo, I originally chose this kick because I really liked it. But I actually ended up on this one. And why did I do that? So I'll just go back and I'll edit this again. Now, what I did then, and I realized, I was like, I need to build a sub bass. Now, in this situation, what most of you would probably end up doing is you're going to get your sub bass. Now, I've loaded up Silent. I've chosen Warm Harbor. But you'd probably go, oh, I've got a kick here. I've got a kick here. Let me see what I can do to make find a sub bass that works with it. Now that I think is incorrect. So what I was doing was, I'll just loop this. I was doing something like this. Oh yeah, that sounds all right. But I can tell you now that it just clashes too much. So I essentially was trying to find the sub that was going to fit the kick. But if you look at my previous video on kick and sub relations, it's better to choose the sub and the mid bass that work well together, and then choose the kick that complements it. So what you should do is you should solo the sub, and then you should solo your mid bass and see what works. So I'll take that off. Now, I'll go through the sub-bass patches and I'll show you what I mean. So there's this one, I think there's Ultra Sub. I don't think that fits. Now, what do I mean by that doesn't fit? I feel that the sub and mid bass together should harmonically cover each other, and I will go into that in another video. But essentially, find the right sub bass that matches your kick. I hope it keeps my patch, because I have tweaked this slightly. Essentially, I landed on this one. I don't know if it's reset the settings. I won't save the project, but essentially, I landed on this one. Kind of had that one, but I landed on this one. Oh, that's right. This is what I did. So I opened up the oscilloscope, and if you haven't seen my kick and sub relationship video and how I use this, definitely look at that. But essentially, what I did was, you can see. Now, I'll get to this in a moment, but you can again look at my other video on this. But essentially, I saw the waveforms. And you see how the ultra sub peaks like that? I didn't like that. I was like, that's not good. And yes, this is my tweaked one, because you can see the kick, the sub fits where it should. What do I mean by that? Watch my kick and sub video and then come to this one and you will understand. So, essentially I chose Warm Harbor and I thought, you know what? This fits nicely. It's not, doesn't have too much of a peak in the oscilloscope. And the shape of the waveform is the same size as the kick. So I look at this one and I kind of look at this. It's very peaky in compared to the kick. I mean, that's not even the real kick. The actual kick is this. And see, that is a good kick and sub relationship. See that? That's a beautiful kick and sub. No overlapping whatsoever. Again, watch my other tutorial on kick and sub bass relationships to know exactly what I'm talking about and why that is actually a really good relationship. Anyway, how did I achieve that? So, essentially, if you look at this kick, it's overlapping. You can see it bleeds way too far in. I'll have to change the color. See that? See that overlap? Way too overlapped. Anyway, so essentially what the first thing I did was, I'm going too far into my other video, but essentially what the first thing I did was I found the sub which fits my mid bass. I was like, that sounds really nice. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and see if my kick fits that. So let's just open this up and let's just scroll through and have a listen to the different kicks, and we can see why we landed on number 3. So let's just go through that now, and I'll show you now what it's about is choosing the kick that matches your sub and your mid bass. Or if you're having a different genre, make the basses first and then find your kick that matches it, because it's a lot easier than trying to create a sub or a bass line that matches the kick, in my opinion, especially in uplifting trance. So let's just go through this. That's not the one we want. Not so much. So that's the one I landed on. So I think that sounds really nice. So we can see that there. Now, how do you shape the kick? So essentially, when I first got this patch, which is number 3, this one here, what I realized was, and I don't know if it saved my settings, but we'll have a look. What you have to understand is, we'll bring up the oscilloscope. Oops. You see how they're not overlapping at all? Now, when I first took this kick what you want to do is, if you have some sort of, in Ableton, what I use is the drum rack, and it has here what's called your ADSR, which is your attack, sustain, decay, release. And you have a way to shorten and lengthen your kick. So essentially the patch may start off something like this. If I bring the oscilloscope in, you see how it overlaps? So the first thing you want to do is get rid of this overlap. And how do you do that? You shorten the kick. So let's shorten it. And I described this in my other video, but make sure you shorten it to a point that doesn't overlap. Now, you don't want to do it too short, because then that's what's called boxing your kick in. So in a kick waveform, I'm just going to pause this. The start is your attack or your punch, and this part is your sub. So if we go too short, you see how we lose that sub? And you don't want that. You want to make sure that if someone says your kick is too boxed in, it means you've shortened it too much. So make sure you don't shorten it too much, but you shorten it enough that it goes out of the way of the sub and doesn't have bleed. So that's fine. Now, the next thing you want to do is use in my case, if you have different software, I don't know with different DAWs, but with Ableton, I like to use the drum rack, which has a sampler in it, and the sampler allows you to use this mode called classic mode, and classic mode allows you to tune the ADSR of the kick. I think this is much more important than EQing a kick to fit into the track. So I'll bring up the oscilloscope again, and we can have a look at just the kick waveform, and just pay attention to this particularly. What I might do is, we've kind of got the length. No, actually, I won't turn it off. But just pay attention to this kick sample. I've just frozen it there, and just pay attention to how I will change that using the ADSR. Now, in this particular case, let's say we want to bring the release down, and we'll see how that affects the kick. And the trick, or what you're looking for here, is you want to shape your kick so it sounds the way you want, and it also gets out of the way of everything. Sometimes you may still see a lot of bleed, and you can still use that ADSR even if you can't shorten the kick length to reduce it. So first of all, let's just say I've shortened it through this. If I just open that up, oops. If I open that up, see how it bleeds? I can use my release to bring that down. You see how I've done the exact same thing with the release. Okay. Now I may want to use my sustain to make my kick a little bit less in your face, let's just say. Now that's shortened the kick too much, and I know exactly why that's happened, because, well, you've kind of taken too much of the release away. But let's just say, in this particular case, we get rid of that, we shorten the kick again, and then we can say, let's use a sustain. So now I've taken the sustain down a little bit, I've taken the release down a little bit, and that to me sounds perfect. Now I'll just double check on the oscilloscope. We can see very little overlap. Now I'll just bring the release down just a little bit more. And this is where you can get really precise with your overlap of your kick and sub relationship, and make sure that you have shaped the kick exactly as you want. So I think that's really good. And I think we have a good kick and sub relationship now. So if we play that together, now you can tune it together. So just adjust the taste. Now, I think they sound pretty level. We can kind of see the peaks of the kick and sub are around the same place. I don't really touch the decay too much. I'll leave it just as it is. Don't touch the attack, because you need attack in your kick to be 0. So keep that there. Just mess around with the sustain and release. And you have now successfully shaped your kick. Now, a lot of you may not shorten the kick. A lot of you may just leave all of this stock standard. So what you will see is a kick that doesn't fit your sub. And you can see here by shortening, even if I just lengthen that, you see the bleed. I can hear that straight away after producing for a long time, but a lot of you may not be able to pick that out. You might think that's just nice sub together, but that bleed into the region, I'll make it a little clearer. What color to use? There, you see that bleed there? Might be a little easier for you. But that bleed, you should not have that. And something like that again. Now obviously messed around with it, but you can see how shaping your kick is so much more fundamental to finding the right kick and putting it in there than something like an EQ, because the EQ will now come after this. And with the EQ, just to give you a quick tip, where I'm not going to get into the kick EQing just yet, but with EQ, I haven't even got one here, and I'm building the track. Once I get all the hats, once I get all the percussions and the effects, and I feel then it's really time to start properly precisioning the EQ, because you might want to boost the kick to fit the fullness of the track, or add some more snap because it's not cutting through the hi-hats enough. And that stuff can be done later, but in your early composition stages, you don't need to do that. You just need to shape your kick. I'll get into an EQ tutorial a little bit later. You can do it at the start, it's fine, but you'll more inadvertently than not make adjustments to that. And it's an adjustment process that happens multiple times throughout the track. It's not something you just do one off and leave it there. So that's why I say this is super important, because this will gel the track and the kick and bass together really well, and you'll be able to sort of get the results you are after, which is a nice kick and sub relationship. So yeah. Anyway, I hope that's helped. Let me know if you have any questions. Drop them in the comments below. And of course, if you do like this video, thumbs up please. And if you've made it this far, if you can subscribe, that would be awesome as well. All right, everyone. Thank you so much, and see you at the next one.